eyes inside. The houses looked just as she remembered them, but time seemed to have stood still. On the clock in the center of the square, the hand stood at 12 o'clock, though the sun was already slipping toward dusk. When Yulia returned home, her grandmother was sitting in a rocking chair. Her face was calm, but her eyes were staring off into the distance. "Grandma?" Yulia called out to her, but she didn't answer. Yulia touched her shoulder and the woman shuddered as if she had been pulled out of a deep sleep. "Yulia, are you here?" Grandma's voice was shaky. "Of course I'm here, but what's going on? People, they can't see me." Grandmother looked at her for a long time, then sighed and said, "I warned you to stay away from the tower. She never lets go of those who have entered her mechanism." Yulia froze, feeling the blood run cold in her veins. "What do you mean?" "You're back, but you're not the same. The tower let you go, but it took your reflection. You're here now, but only half." Yulia jumped up, rushed to the mirror. She saw herself in the reflection, but her shadow moved belatedly. Sometimes it disappeared altogether, leaving a void behind her. "How do I stop it?" she asked, turning to her grandmother. "I don't know. Those who have become part of the tower can't just walk away. You are bound to her. She will call you back." Yulia heard a quiet sound behind her. Tick-tock. She turned around and saw that a dial had appeared on the wall in her house. Its hands began to move, counting down the time. "What is this?" Yulia shouted. Grandma frowned. "It's a sign. You have to finish what you started. If you don't, the tower will take everything." "What do you mean everything?" "Everyone you love." Yulia looked at her watch. The hands were moving faster, and their sound was getting louder, as if filling the space around them. She realized the tower had given her a choice, but her ordeal was not over. "I have to go back," she said. Her grandmother nodded silently, and her eyes filled with tears. Yulia grabbed her jacket and ran out of the house, heading for the tower. The shadows in the streets were lengthening, and behind her back the same relentless sound was still playing. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Yulia ran up to the tower, feeling her breath hitching with fatigue. The sound of the ticking clock intensified, becoming almost deafening. Everything around her was falling into darkness, as if the tower was pulling light and warmth from the world around it. The front door, which had been dilapidated before, now looked new, as if it had just been installed. Yulia hesitated, but she knew there was no turning back. She pushed the door open with a heavy creak. Inside, she was greeted by complete silence. The tower looked different. The walls were smooth, without cracks, and the gears moved with such precision that they seemed to have a life of their own. In the center of the room stood the timekeeper. His figure blended into the shadow of the tower, and his dial mast glowed with a soft golden light.